She's showing you looking at your reflection in the water, and it's rippling. And then she's showing herself standing next to you in the reflection. She says, you know this, but she said, we are each other's mirror. What does that mean? We are reflections of each other. We are. I hope you like what you see.
That's gonna make me cry.
Yeah.
Nobody ever prepares you to lose a loved one. And saying goodbye is just the beginning of a lifetime of missing them. Turning to tell them about a win or ask advice and remembering they're not here anymore. But are they? I lost my mother on Mother's Day just a year ago. Goodbye just wasn't enough for me. Desperate to connect with her again, I went to beautiful Big Sur last fall to meet a rising star in the spirit realm.
I'm talking to someone's spiritual team, their spirit guides, right? If mediums are giving any type of guarantees that a spirit's gonna come through, I immediately have an eyebrow raised. We're here to discover who you are, where you've been, what your hopes and dreams are, and to have a conversation with the multiple spirits that are here.
What if we have the ability within us to conjure spirits from the other side?
The work I do, and I think the work you do, is about helping people to trust what 9 times out of 10 they already know.
This great what if is why we're here tonight. I'm proud to introduce my friend and spirit guide, Aja Daashuur. This is the Meaning We Make podcast.
I acknowledge that in the past, I've probably gone to people who are mediums out of wanting control or certainty.
So have I. That's not the way, in my opinion, spirit works or spirits work. Before I did this work, when I was younger, and I had basically shut this connection down, I would go to a medium or a tarot reader with in mind what I wanted to hear, what would make me feel better.
Validation seeking.
Absolutely, and be very upset if I did not hear. I was the worst client to have. I would argue, I would be very closed, which is very hard for anyone to connect when you have that closed energy. Yeah, I wanted not just validation, I wanted certainty. I wanted to feel like as though I was in control. And when I felt out of control, I was going to these people to give me back that control. And I think historically, people have done that in general with mediums or tarot readers or any type of psychic. And that's not the work. The work is to be able to receive, whether it's from an ancestor or from your spiritual team, information you need to make choices that will matter, as best you can, and that will help you connect to a timeline that ultimately, at this point in your life, your soul wants to meet head on. And I think that, over time and with age and with hopefully some wisdom, I've come to realize that, and especially obviously with my own work, that if we're going into a session with a preconceived idea of what we're going to receive, that's a way to really kind of cut off the fountain of information that we have the ability to receive from the spirits around us. The more open you are, the better. Because most of the work I do is very specific. It is very much, I'm talking to someone's spiritual team, their spirit guides, right? And a lot of times, psychics, mediums, we all have our different belief systems. This is just my experience. It's not always someone that is related to us, right? People can come through that want to guide us, but they're not necessarily a spirit guide. That's a very specific, in my opinion, job.
Interesting.
So when someone during a session's like, I want to talk to my brother Joe, I always say, I can try to connect. Let's see. Sometimes they'll come through right away. Sometimes before I even start a session, I'll say, before we begin, there's a presence here. Let me describe what's happening. Sometimes I'll sense someone kind of far away, walking very slowly, towards me. I don't know if they're going to come all the way through, In my opinion, if mediums, this could be controversial, but are giving any type of guarantees that a spirit's going to come through, I'm immediately have an eyebrow raised because we know a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what goes on the other side. There are no guarantees. We're trying to part mist in a way and see what we can see and feel what we can hear from the other side and hope that it connects and resonates. And there can't be a guarantee with that. But to your point of, can you ask my spirit guides to bring
Oh,
her
God, my mom.
forward, the guides are always trying to do that. It's almost like a call. Like, is she here? Is she coming? Is she arriving now? And sometimes spirits are in different places, and time, of course. Time is an illusion, right? Like everything is happening at once. So what timeline is an individual on? Are they going to connect to this one? It's kind of like a soup, and you're hoping that you can tell which vegetable's in it.
I like that analogy. The other thing that came up for me is, so shortly after I became a clinician, I also was working as an interim CEO of a startup, and we had a call center. And because of my work in drug and alcohol treatment prior to that, where in the drug and alcohol treatment world, I ran a call center as well. And I had hired somebody from a psychic network to come help run this call center. And one of the most fascinating things that she said to me was that there had been clients who would spend $100,000 a year connecting to this psychic at the psychic network.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm in the wrong business. But it speaks to the power of how even affluent people want this control, want this certainty.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about or share a little bit about, like, maybe even some of your clients are like that, where part of that is reaching out and what's there, but also maybe not taking accountability from a clinician standpoint. Part of me is like, do they not want to do the work?
Oh, no, they don't. They don't. I think that's when we really begin to differentiate between fraudulent and clear connection. If I'm calling a psychic line, and I've met some psychics that are connected to those psychic lines, and they're for real, and they have so much empathy and so much kindness, and they want to help whoever comes through. Some of them, they're just Joe Schmo from down the street. They're going to tell you whatever you want to hear. But if you are going to someone and almost demanding someone to be a fortune teller, then that's already you're starting off on the wrong foot. The work that I do, very much like yours, is we're having a conversation. You're just talking to multiple voices instead of one. You're not coming here for a Cliff Notes version of your life. That's not doing the work. We have to excavate. We have to connect. We have to understand where you are, where you've been. And I'm sharing what your guides are hopeful of. I'm sharing what your guides are suggesting. It's not a cure-all. When I have clients that come through that say things like, I want to know when I'm going to meet my soulmate. I want to know what my purpose in life is. I immediately will say, that's not the work that we do here. If that's what you want, we should end the session right now. We're here to discover who you are, where you've been, what your hopes and dreams are, and to have a conversation with the multiple spirits that are here to help you have the strength to make those choices. I definitely have had very affluent clients that want to know very specific details, and they want that certainty. I have no interest in doing that work. I'm not a fortune teller, and I believe historically a lot of people that were doing fortune telling work, not that they weren't gifted, a lot of them were very gifted, but they were in survival mode because they were going to have to pick up and leave in a few weeks or a few months or a few days. I'm going to dole out what I see. I'm going to, in my mind, think what this could connect to. Here's the future that I'm reading, even though it's just a possibility because there are multiple timelines happening. Take what you want. I'm never going to see you again.
So, let's talk a little bit about the historical perspective.
Yeah.
Right. Just in broad strokes. And then this multiple timeline idea.
Sure.
What does that mean exactly?
I mean, there's been a huge boom in the movie industry about these multiple timelines. And basically, what I've learned from my own guides is that there are multiple versions of reality happening at once. And when they're giving us advice, it's to connect to a specific timeline. They will almost show me like a train, and with someone they'll say, because I'm clairvoyant, is the person by the train? Are they on the train? Are they walking to the train station? To give a sense of time for me to understand what I'm sharing with people. But they're trying to connect people to certain timelines so that there's certain points that our spirit, our soul, has told our guides that we want to hit, whether it's a certain person, a certain career, living in a certain place, and they're hoping that we're going to be making certain choices so that we can get on that train. If we miss that train, another one will come along, but it'll be different. It'll take us somewhere else. Yes.
And I know that I have a firm belief, both lived and what I've observed in my clinical practice, that the universe keeps showing you what you need to learn until you learn it.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, some people will equate it to, I keep pulling the same tarot card over and over again. What is going on? Well, your guides are trying to tell you the same thing again and again, or people who date the same type of toxic person over and over again. You know, has a lesson been learned? When are you bringing enough self-worth and self-love into your life, into your perspective of who you are or wish to be, that you're making a different choice, right? That will connect you to a different timeline. And it could be as simple as doing your taxes. Or for me, I remember I kept having horrible experiences whenever I would travel at the airport, just like horrible, like whether it be a delay or, you know, getting checked by security in a way that made me feel very unsafe. And I knew it was because something simple, like I hadn't updated my driver's license, but I kept avoiding it. And I remember my guide saying, this is going to keep happening. I mean, again, I want people to understand that, you know, whether you believe in spirit guides or not, we're also talking about listening to your subconscious, right? So anyway, as soon as I updated my driver's license, even though all of those things could have still happened, the flight delays, the security checks have not had an issue since, you know? The universe will keep saying, what are you avoiding? What are you pushing to the back of the closet? That will ultimately make your life better in small ways and large ways if you just face it.
That's exactly my experience, so I appreciate that. So, you're a kid, and you figure out there's like this thing that's going on, and am I crazy? Like, what is that like? How did you discover that you had this talent, this gift?
I didn't figure anything out. I was about 5 years old. I started waking up every night from nightmares, which later on I realized were visions, and seeing people standing in my room.
Wow.
Getting up, running to my parents' bed every single night. I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew I was scared all the time. And then a lot of different experiences happened, but a friend of my parents who was also a medium came, and I had drawn photos of people I had seen, and he basically talked to my parents and was validating these presences that were coming to send messages about future things that were going to be happening. I was very scared most of the time. I just wanted to be a normal kid like everybody else. And I remember being about 12 years old, I don't know how I did it, but making a conscious effort and saying, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to see anything anymore. I don't want to feel any of this anymore. I remember very distinctly sitting in the driveway, and my mother was working. She's big into classic cars, and she was working on a car, and I was thinking, I saw this image of her, and I said, oh, she's gonna get hurt. Something's gonna happen. I hear her saying, ouch. And then 10 seconds later, I heard her say, ouch, and I got out and checked on her, and she was fine. But I remember thinking, I don't wanna know anything that's gonna happen, small or big. And then from that moment on, I didn't. It was like a light switch that had been turned off.
Fascinating.
And those things didn't start happening again until much later on in life for me.
But what's interesting to me in that moment is that your parents actually had the wherewithal or had some understanding, like, hey, let's connect to what to attune to what our daughter is experiencing, rather than just like telling her she's crazy, getting her right, like, and that's a gift.
Yes.
As a kid.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very grateful for that. My parents were very curious about what was going on. They didn't understand it, but they wanted to help me. I mean, I was talking to them about, you know, running through ghosts, you know, the visitations that I was having. I never spoke to any of the spirits that came. I didn't want to. It was always, how can I move through them or around them to get to my parents? But they were very supportive until I wanted it to be my calling. So early on as a kid, how can we support? How can we help? Later on as adult, this is crazy, do not do this.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Can you take me back to, so I think you said around 12, you're like, I just want to put this away.
Yeah.
Put it in a closet and just lock it up.
Yes. Well, I was living in New York, and I was going through a really dark side of the moon time. I was really depressed. I was working like a shitty job. I felt very isolated and alone. I just was unhappy every day, and I was thinking, you know, is this it? Like, is this almost like apathetic. I was like, I didn't even realize I was really depressed. I just was like, maybe this is just the way life is. And that train of thought got me to the point where I knew I had to make a choice. I decided, I need to figure out how to feel better. And I remember at the time, I was very broke and I was looking for a therapist, and therapists are expensive. I remember looking at therapists at the time, this was years ago, $150, $200 an hour. I was like, well, I can't afford to do that. I don't have health insurance. So how can I do this for myself? And I started meditating, even though I had poo-pooed it. I had no interest, but I was desperate. And it was through that desperation, I started my meditation practice. And through that meditation practice, memories from my childhood started coming. And I just kind of went down into the labyrinth, memories started coming up. I started asking my parents questions about when I was a kid. I was following synchronicities that led me to a shaman that I had a really beautiful experience with. I started having visions again at night. And just through all of that, piece by piece, things started waking up within me that were connected to my previous connection with spirits until it really blossomed into, for those who don't know, clairvoyance and clairaudience, which is clear seeing, clear knowing. I started to see things. I started to hear voices, which led to a whole nother, am I going crazy? What's happening?
How very scary that must have been.
It was scary, but I was so excited. I was obsessed. I was like, I cannot wait to hear more. I cannot wait to see more. Yes, this is terrifying, but I'm more curious than I am terrified. This is in some form going to be my life. I remember making that choice, like, this is my life. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm on board.
You couldn't not do it.
I couldn't turn away from that light.
And I'll just share, I get that, because when I left corporate America, where I was working for Nickelodeon for many years, and had started going back to school while I was there part-time to become a therapist, which took me 5 years to decide that that's what I was going to do. And a lot of that was born from going to my own personal therapy.
Yeah.
But I was resisting it. So I understand that. Like, I resisted it. I was like in a cool career, like, ooh, you said MTV Networks, Nickelodeon, and people were like, what?
Yes,
right?
yes.
I mean, my identity was so attached to that.
Yeah.
And then I thought, like, and what? Go and be a therapist? And like, what's, like, by the way, I'm from the Midwest. Like, the therapist is either the bartender or the priest.
Yeah.
And so, but to your point, where like I had like suppressed it. Once I decided to become a therapist, I could not.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there are so many barriers. I distinctly remember, similar to your experience, that once I started to kind of move into the decision of becoming a therapist and going through the motion, it all made sense. It's always been there. This not just interest, but pull.
Yeah. Yes, and that's also probably why you're great at what you do, because you can look at people and say, I've been where you are. I know you're not there yet, but trust me, you will be, and I'll help you climb those steps.
But I want to take us back to that point where you're like, okay, I'm here. I was going through a dark time. I have to. So then how did that happen?
Well, when I was in New York, for some reason, even though I was in such a dark place, I was still the person that everyone would come to for advice or guidance. I could not understand it. But I enjoyed connecting, I'm not an extrovert by any means, but I love talking and listening and creating a space for revelation. So I thought, sure, let me take this 2-year life coaching course, right? And that's what I thought I was going to do. Like, let me be a life coach. This is before the huge explosion of them. I was like, let me try this. But all the while when I was doing that, I was still, learning about tarot. I was pulling cards. I was having these, became obsessed with revitalizing the connection I'd had as a child, finding a way to crowbar my way through that door. And so while I'd gone through the training, at that point I'd moved from New York back to LA, and I was just doing a lot of psychic work through my meditation because I'm also a skeptic. I wanted to hear or see them again, my guides.
Okay.
So I had a religious practice. I was dedicated to my meditation practice. I was dedicated to automatic writing, which is allowing spirits to move your hand to write on the page. And every day, several times a day, I would put my hand on the page and I would write, "Hi, is anyone there?" And I would wait for them to move the pen. And nothing would happen. And I'd write, "Okay, I'll try again later." And I would just go back a few hours later and do it. And then eventually, like, a little squiggly line would happen. And I would, okay, great.
That freaks me out because that takes me back to when I was a kid in the Ouija boards.
Oh yeah, I don't do Ouija boards. But that's basically, it's very similar. Also, let me just say, I had no rules. I had no idea what I was doing. I did not have any boundaries. I did not do any protections. I was just obsessed with connecting with any spirit. Do not do that, but that's where I was at the time, you know? And yeah, so every day, any time I could, I would wait for them to move my hand. And then one day I was pulling cards for a friend after we had lunch. And I was pulling cards for her, and I heard this voice very clearly next to me say, "Be nicer to Justin," who's my partner.
Oh.
It was very clear. Yeah, I heard this male voice say, "Be nicer to Justin."
My partner's probably like, can you tell her that?
Oh, obviously some stuff was going on, but I remember thinking, I am plenty nice to Justin, right? But I ran downstairs and I grabbed the pen and the paper and I said, "Hello, is anyone there?" And that's when my hand started to move.
Wow. Were you freaked out?
No, I was elated. I was on cloud 9, and that's how my practice started with, I would say, "What is your name?" and "Where are you from?" and and then I was very obsessed with proof, right? I need proof. I need proof. When were you born? What year? What town? What city? I couldn't find that on Google. What are you talking about, Google? I'm just telling you my story. Like I wanted more proof. I would do all of these things to test them. Like, oh, I'm going to get this tattoo. Am I going to get this tattoo? Yes, you'll get the tattoo. The tattoo artist just emailed me and said it's not happening. So this isn't real. You're going to get the tattoo. Well, that morning, I can actually give you your tattoo now. I was constantly testing them, which breaks my heart now. But at the time, I wanted as much proof as possible.
And actually, to be candid, I think that's the part of me that resonated the most with you, is that healthy dose of skepticism.
Oh, always, always, always. Yeah. Even while also I was, a lot of other things were happening at night, again, because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no teachers. I was doing this on my own. I was talking to any spirit that came through. I had a lot of visitations, in the bedroom, a lot of things that were looking back were scary, but I was so obsessed with connecting and expanding that connection as far as it could go. So at that point, I had my little life coaching practice, very few clients, fine. Guides often tell me, which is interesting when you were talking about your story about you were working in for Nickelodeon, but you're, going to school. Guides will often say sometimes we have to walk 2 roads at the same time until one road can be taken away for the road we ultimately want to walk on. So I had my 9 to 5 job. I had my few clients, and at this point I was hearing my guide, my main guide. I have several guides, but my main guide's name is Monty. I was hearing him all of the time.
I remember Monty from our
Monty. Oh yeah, hearing him all the time, and he said, "It's time to join your life coaching practice with your mediumship." I didn't even know I was a medium. Like, he said, "You're a medium." And I said, "No, I'm not." He's like, "What do you think is happening right?" And like, "I don't know." He said, "It's time to join your mediumship with your life coaching practice." And I said, "That's crazy. I'm not going to do that."
How is he coming up? Because I'm wondering if the audience is like, are you like just, is this like crazy talk right now? Like how is Monty coming up in that moment in a way that you could connect with Monty that wasn't just sort of like, because you're on no substance when this is happening.
Oh, no. I mean, I had to stop drinking. I had to stop smoking pot because it was, again, too many voices, too loud, and scary. So I had stopped. I'd become a vegetarian at that point. I had stopped a lot of things. Like, the more your sensitivity goes up.
Yeah.
But I was hearing him and then just writing pages and pages. And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be ostracized. I don't want to be called crazy.
Yeah.
No one's going to care about that. I don't want to do that. And every day, though, he had been asking me during my meditation practice, "Are you committed?" And every day I'd said, "Yes, I'm committed." so he told me I should join the practice, and then I said, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, are you committed? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm committed. I'm committed. So as soon as I merged it, my practice just exploded, which was amazing and overwhelming and all of the things at once. But I'm just incredibly grateful that I had faith and I trusted. And at the end of the day, the worst thing that would have happened was that, you know, it didn't work out and I would have done something else. So,
one, how do your parents feel about that now? And then two, how do you describe that to people who are deeply religious, who have a very strong sort of connection to whatever their version of a Bible is, right? Whatever that is, whatever religion that is very sort of like this happened, this happened, this happened according to their gospel.
yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Okay, there's a couple of parts to that question. First of all, I went to Catholic school. So I remember when I started doing automatic writing with Monty, he would mention like angels or God. And I remember being like, oh, I remember telling him, I was like, I don't want to, like, what is this? Why are we talking about angels? Why are we talking about God? I am not religious. And I remember him saying, I'm using vocabulary you can understand. And I remember taking that to heart. I said, okay. And he would continue to utilize a lot of those words. A lot of my clients are religious, you know, they're, you know, various faiths, but they have a belief system that's based on there is more than what's written. And also, honestly, in every single religion, there is a reference to some type of angel or connection or spirit or source. Again, we're just using interchangeable words.
Sure.
So I definitely have clients that are religious. That being said, there are always going to be people that believe that what I do is evil, connected to whatever their belief or version is of the devil. My family included, parts of my family included. And I understand that. I understand that hesitation. I understand their version of judgment. I understand the desire to protect themselves because there are scary things on the other side. Those are just not the people that I'm going to be connecting with, and that's okay. They'll find someone else that they can connect with and share with. I don't take it as a personal insult. You know, I don't take it as an insult if people tell me that I'm crazy or, you know, they don't believe in what I'm doing or they think that, like, I'm a fraudster. I'm like, of course, I understand where that would come from historically and logically. I guess we're not going to talk about it. That's fine. But I do think there's a connection between religion and faith and universal love. And at the end of the day, that is what spirit guides want us to be connecting to. Having faith in ourselves, belief in ourselves, and connect to more love.
But I do want to go back to the point around, you know, you had parents when you were a kid that was like, let's explore this, which was pretty profound to me because I can't imagine that a lot of parents would have that wherewithal. What do you want parents to know today who might not be so open to that? I remember you saying something about like, who didn't have an imaginary friend?
Exactly. Yeah. I want parents to know that whether they believe in, you know, what their child is saying about imaginary friend or a dream that happened, that all you're doing is encouraging your child to trust themselves, you know? And all of us know that if we could trust ourselves more, we could cut out so much of that trauma.
That's a lot of what I work with as an adult, with the adult child, right? The kid that didn't get that reinforcement from a parent to trust themselves, and they grow up to be the adult that's like constantly second guessing, can't make a decision, they waffle all the time.
Yes, you're helping them avoid all of that. You know, oh, I have this partner, they treat me like crap, but maybe it's me. No, trust yourself. You know, oh, I want to take the job, but maybe there's someone better. No, trust yourself. This is your job. Take it. Like, I think that all you're doing, you're not humoring your child. You're stepping into their world and doing your best to understand it, because there's a reason they're having these experiences. There's a reason they're bringing these experiences to you, because they trust you. And if you're meeting their trust with disbelief, that's creating a crack, and that's heartbreaking.
So well said. That's really profound. So well said. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Okay, so you're working in this space. Historically, it's not been a safe space.
No, definitely not. Yeah. It was definitely hard for me to share what I had decided to do with my family, with friends. That definitely was a journey in and of itself. And I think, again, historically, whether we're talking about, witches, or we're talking about, honestly, women going against the patriarchy, like there is, if you go back far enough, whether it's, the oracles of Delphi, there's always been this culture around belief that people have the ability to connect and receive, but it's always come also with a sense of fear. There's some cultures that have respected it, but a lot of cultures have also feared it. I think that really connects to the idea of fear of power being taken away, instead of what most of these, practitioners, men or women, have wanted, which is to be of service, right? And I think that fear has then caused a lot of people to go into hiding with their gifts and retreat. And that's also created a culture of utilizing the gifts for survival in a way that can be damaging. So there's all these different facets.
Can you go more into that?
Well,
so
I think,
understand that more.
If you are in fear for your life, you have this gift, you're setting up camp somewhere, people have heard about you, they're coming to have their fortune told. Again, there's this sense of, yes, I'm going to share what is true, but am I also going to share something that could be true or could not be true, because I need to survive and I need this money now so that I can feed my family, and we're going to disappear in a few days? It's created that culture as well. But I also believe that a lot of this work, in my opinion, is what I call original medicine. It's the original connections that is to be of service to the people and to the community. And I love that it is becoming more accepted and can be utilized hand in hand with, whether it be speaking to a psychologist or a therapist, they can work together to really help people overall.
Which is absolutely why we're here, right? Like, I think it's so important for people to understand, like, one of the reasons why I went, as I mentioned before, was like I still felt this layer of grief.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to find a different modality that might help me to move through this, because I've done talk therapy before and I can talk myself into oblivion, I've done psychedelics, and that has been very useful to me.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't always want to do those things, right? I want to find something else to penetrate, to kind of move through whatever I'm going through, or to find new discovery. Especially if you've done things one way, sometimes you need to try something new or different.
I think you're right, and I believe that just as first of all, I believe everyone should be in therapy, period. Just as people are going to see a therapist to connect, I think that every individual deserves to create their own self-practice to receive what their intuition and their guides wish to be sharing. I think it works in tandem with these other modalities, How are you making your own, hearing your own voice clearer? How are you hearing the voices of your guides and ancestors clearer? How are you utilizing that connection that's there around you all the time to aid with the other practices, the other modalities that you are connecting to really create this, beautiful meal of healing and wellness?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we will talk about intergenerational trauma as therapists, and we carry forward what is not healed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, even in the womb, like
Yes.
the stressors of our mother become our stress. Like that impacts our physiology, right?
Yes.
And then we're born more neurotic because of something that is,
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, I used to, before COVID, I would do a lot of past life regression work.
Oh, interesting.
And I remember a client who was moving through, issues of being seen. She She always felt like she had to be behind everybody else. She didn't want to be seen. And when we did a regression, we went back to when she was 12 and then when she was 5. And then, you know, over the course of these sessions, there was one where I was asking her where she was, and she was like, I'm in somewhere really dark. I can feel someone next to me. And through our discussions, you know, she realized, because she's in a hypnotic state, that she was in the womb. And she has a twin brother.
Oh, shoot.
And she said, I'm taking up too much room.
Oh, wow.
And it was so
Profound.
It was incredible. From the womb with her brother, and her brother was this very gregarious, you know, personality. So from that moment, it was a huge breakthrough when she came out of it, but it started there. And
Wow.
how are you going to be conscious of the fact that you felt you were taking up too much room in the womb?
Yeah, no kidding.
You know, and of course that's going to affect you.
Yeah.
So I know, tangent, but
No,
you know,
no, but
yeah.
I'm with you 100%. People don't realize how things transpire over a course of literally while we're in the womb. My friend Alia, who was on the podcast, works, you know, in many ways as a rebirther for that very reason. Like, how are you impacted? How did your mom birth? You know, how do you know the details of that birth?
Yes.
What was the impact of that?
Yes.
You know. So I'm with you, but you know, you can also look at it from like a macro level, even like slavery, for crying out loud. I mean,
That's literally, yeah, I mean, that ripple out is obviously, we're still feeling the effects of it, you know? Yeah, it's, you know, from a society, you know, I mean, yeah, there's so much to unpack in every facet of who we are as an individual and as a collective. It feels almost silly to not try or to step into as many modalities as possible to help with the healing, you know?
I think we're aligned on that. Okay, so can we talk a little bit about just sort of, you know, when we were at Esalen, I'd only heard of clairvoyance. And so I want to talk about like, how does, you know, whether it's the physiology or the energy or the ways that we connect with the spirits, like, I don't have the answers. I don't even really know where to go other than what I learned from our workshop. Then I was like, whoa, I had no idea about any of this. So I'm going to ask you to lead me a little bit through this process of like, how does one even know that they have it? Can you have it? Do we all have it? How does it show up?
Totally. I mean, we all have intuition. We've all like walked into a room before and been thought like, oh, I don't know if this is the right place for me, or met someone and immediately just felt a connection. So, you know, I believe one of my callings is to help people understand how they receive, right? Like creating a language, that bridge between, you know, this plane and the other side. And, you know, to break it down, there are these things called clairs, like, you know, clear, right? And the ones that I usually focus on are clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairaudience, clear hearing, clear sentience, clear feeling, clear cognizance, clear knowing, right? And it's really discovering through meditations and journeys and which of these clairs can you already begin to turn the dial up, right? So we do something called the dominant sense exercise, where I'll mention, you know, can you imagine a sunset? Imagine someone calling your name. What does it feel like to swim? What does it feel, can you smell a freshly cut lemon, so that you're beginning to kind of ping into which sense is actually already alive, like a string on a guitar that you begin to pluck more. And through that, very much like dominoes, the stronger one sense gets, others start to fall into place. Because I want people to understand that, of course, they have people like you or me or others that they can go to connect in whatever form, but you want to be able to have your own autonomy and be able to receive and create your own language with your spirit guides, so that you're not beholden to a certain time or place, right? So again, all of this, you know, takes practice, right? So it's really about, as Monty would say, how committed are you to that practice, so that you can really begin to expand and understand what your specific language is.
Got it. So how would somebody who's new at this go about, if they don't have someone close by like yourself, or that they feel they can trust to guide them, how would they go about figuring it out for themselves?
I think the first thing, you know, I know it's at this point a cliche, is to start a a daily meditation practice, even if it's just 10 minutes, because you want to get to a point where your body and mind are quiet enough that they can receive, you know? And that could take weeks or months, you know, to get to a place where you're not going through a checklist of things you have to do, but you just have to keep at it. And then also, and again, you know, I'm not the first person to say this. Hundreds of thousands of people have said this. Starting a journaling practice, just where you're emptying out what's in your mind, right? You want to be emptying out things on a page. You can reread it later. And then I always suggest, you know, bringing in, you know, oracle cards into the mix, you know. I always suggest oracle cards versus tarot, because tarot is its own unique, deep language. And when we use oracle cards specifically that have conversational words on it, we can start to create a conversation with our guides and speaking to them out loud. We want to fatten that cord of connection so that synchronicities and messages are coming in when we're out and about, you know? And then another component to that is not eroding the message. And what I mean by that is, if you feel that you're receiving a message, believe it. Don't automatically play devil's
Don't test
advocate.
them like you were.
I know. Don't do what I did. You know, if you see, you know, a falcon overhead and it reminds you that you want to take flight to go to Paris, don't think, well, it's probably just a falcon. It wasn't really for me. No, it is for you because it resonated and it brought something to mind, right? Again, it doesn't matter if you believe it's an animal guide or not. Your subconscious is still trying to get information through to you.
Yeah.
So, you know, why not receive it and take it from there?
Is that what you would say spirit guides is our intuition?
No, I think our intuition is something completely separate. I think sometimes our spirit guides are utilizing our intuition to get messages to us, but we have our own, we have our higher selves, you know, like our true north, like our soul that knows where we need to go and is trying to connect to us. It's that voice, you might have heard me say to Estlin, that's like, you should get up with the sunset, you know, and watch the sunset. That's our higher self. That's our intuitive voice. And then the shadow voice will say, you know, just sleep 5 more minutes, you know? Or, you know, your higher self is the voice that's like, you should say yes to, you know, Andy inviting you to that party. And a part of you is like, no, I don't want to go out. I want to get dressed. And then for some reason you keep hearing that voice say, you should go. And you go and you meet the love of your life, you know? That could be a spirit guide and an intuition combined, but it's listening to that voice that's like a different vibration. It's a higher vibration. You can feel it. And you can feel when a lower vibration comes to try to change your mind. You know, there is that difference energetically that you can feel.
So a spirit guide might try to use our intuition as the vessel to guide us.
Yeah, towards a deeper knowing or understanding or a revelation, you know. They can help you notice the messages and synchronicities and hope to expand that information for you.
Okay, that was helpful. Thank you for that.
Of course.
Being stuck. What's the utility value in being stuck, and how do we leverage our spirit guides for that? And you've talked a lot about synchronicity.
Yeah.
You've talked about a few other kind of keywords that I was like, we should probably explore that a little bit more. And I wonder if this is a place for us to do that.
You know, what one of my guides just said, what if we changed being stuck to, we're in a place of pause? Or a liminal space. That means there's a request for further exploration, for us to really decide what it is we wish for ourselves. It's not stuck. We're being called to reevaluate. The word stuck often for us equates to lack of momentum or even failure, which there isn't. There is no failure. When we're stuck, we're being asked to actually make a choice, and we might not always be aware of even what that choice is, right? At the time, but hopefully we figure it out. You know, I mean, I've been stuck, and I'm sure you have, and that feeling of being stuck created a trajectory that kind of push you to a point of making a decision.
And what I know for a fact is that the majority of people will not make a change unless or until the impairment in their lives, in whatever way that is, gets so bad that they
Yeah.
have no choice but to make a change.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I absolutely agree. And I think guides are trying to get us to not have to get to that extreme.
And I think for me, that's why I say the universe shows us what we need to learn until we freaking learn it.
Yes. Or we decide that we'll just continue to, my guides will say, play that same song, play that same record over and over again instead of just breaking it, you know?
So, you know, talk to me a little bit about like these sort of like existential signs or synchronicities, and how do we leverage them? Do we interpret them? What's the right way to navigate that?
I think it's all about interpretation. I might receive an image or, because it's not always a sentence, right? I might receive an image and I can share it with a client or somebody, and they might have a total, but then I have to interpret it, what I'm seeing, and they might have a totally different interpretation of it. I could see, you know, a red wagon and say, you know, I feel like I'm seeing a red wagon. Maybe it's time to, you know, reconnect to your inner child. And they say, no, I had a red wagon as a child, and it was a time right before my dad died. And I remember it was the loss of my innocence, right? So it's really also understanding that I myself and other people that do this work, we're interpreting what we're seeing and we're hearing, but then it's up to the person to receive it and to figure out for themselves what it means.
Yeah, it's the meaning we make from whatever is presented, which is including trauma.
Yes.
That's what gets stuck in our body. It's this impact to us that is, it impacted us in a way that we made meaning from it. Of course, there's like, you know, PTSD, horrific events that how could you not experience these things that are completely out of your control? But also, Viktor Frankl wrote, you know, the book, if you will. Are you familiar with Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I'll put it on my list.
Unless you're depressed, then don't read it.
I'll pick my moment.
But
I'll pick my moment wisely.
It's a quick read, and Viktor Frankl went through the Holocaust, and he observed, you know, who makes it out, who doesn't.
Yeah.
And it was the people who found meaning in their suffering that made it out. You know, again, that made it out, like I'm being very sort of broad strokes. I'm sure like there were some people who couldn't make it out because they just like looked, you know, they had blonde hair as opposed to brown hair. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But like the ones that survived rather than like died by suicide, they made it out because they found meaning in their suffering. And that is really what this is so much about, is how do we turn our pain into purpose? That is so much why I became a clinician, was to take the lessons I learned the hard way from my childhood that then were reborn through corporate America playing out because I hadn't addressed them.
Yes.
And how do I then become of service to other people who might be going through something that I'd gone through?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think about even my own journey. You know, I was in a moment of suffering, and then through the work that I did for myself, decided that I wanted to help other people through their suffering in a similar way. I think that those of us that can do that, you know, we're able to activate more healing for ourselves, and hoping that ripples out. And it makes me really sad for those who get trapped in this cycle of that suffering and can't find the door.
Yeah.
You know.
And even that means sometimes, you know, like you came back to your gift decades later.
Yeah.
I mean, it gets stuck in our bodies.
It does, and I think that also goes into, you know, it's really hard, you know, what kind of support do you have? Do you have support? Do you have, whether it's friends or family or your own inner voice at times? I mean, I remember, you know, telling my parents that I was going to do this work, and, you know, my dad didn't talk to me for almost a year.
Wow.
You know, and just having to be really
vigilant.
strong with, like, this is what I want to do. I remember vividly lying in my bed and telling him again that this was the work I wanted to do, and him saying verbatim, well, you're going to fail.
Share what feels right.
Yeah.
But What was so hard in that for him when you shared that with him? Was this a religious thing, or was this a fear that you wouldn't be able to take care of yourself?
It was all from fear that I would not be able to take care of
Yeah.
myself. So he was going to say and do anything to get me off what he felt, and I understand, was the wrong path.
Yeah.
He would send me videos, YouTube videos of people debunking psychics and mediums. And I was like, okay, so my dad thinks I'm a fraud. Gonna have to unpack that at some point. You know, he would just say, again, like, you're gonna fail. You're not gonna be able to make money. You're gonna be out on the street. All of those things, and I'm just so grateful that I'd done so much of my own work to be able to hear him and understand where it was coming from. I knew it was a fear-based thing. I remember telling him, I was like in Bushwick walking to the train. He was like, this is before I told him I was gonna, you know, combine life coaching with talking to the dead. This is when I was just telling him that I signed up for this life coaching course. And he said, you know, I don't understand, like, why? Why are you doing this? And I said, you know, because I want to be happy. And he said, what does that mean? What is happy? And I remember thinking, well, that's what I don't want to be. I don't want to be so disconnected from what happiness could even be that I refuse to even venture out into something different.
Which, had you not, I see this a lot, where a lot of people then go down the rabbit hole of what their parents wanted them to become, often even sometimes taking over the family business or whatever, and that was never really their own truth.
Oh,
So then
all
they're
of
at
the
a
time.
crossroads, right? At 40
yeah.
or
50,
30 or 50
or 60,
whatever,
yeah.
and like they never lived their truth. And it takes such courage and bravery to honor that, particularly when all the cards are stacked against them.
I got to tell you, going back to what you said about the same lesson being needed, I had already done that. I had a whole musical career that I had done for my father. I had worked in television. I did that for my father. I had already done it so often, unconsciously, that this was a moment where I felt that I just didn't need to do it anymore. I wasn't going to do the same thing again. And, you know, I'm just really grateful that despite not knowing what the future, this is before my clairaudience had kicked back in, this is before my clairvoyance had kicked back in, that I just believed enough that in the synchronicities, and that whatever I was feeling felt so right, that I didn't allow his fear to become a tidal wave of insecurity.
Your parents just want you to be safe.
Absolutely.
And if you're taking bigger risks than they've ever taken,
oh yeah.
so similar to you, similar how had happened with my own father, people that love us are just going to this place like, I want you to be safe.
Yes.
And then they will project onto us their fears, and then through that try to tell us how to do life.
Yeah.
And I've lived it, you know. When I remember distinctly that my own father in particular, I was trying to get me to move back to the Midwest, which is, I was not opposed to that, should there be a good reason,
Yeah.
but not to run out of fear. I wanted to run towards something, not run away from something.
Yes. Yes.
And so
yes.
understanding and having the compassion for where other people are coming from, who mean well,
Yes.
but don't know what's best for us.
Yes.
And again, why it's so important for parents to help their kids to understand, to trust their gut.
Yes, I agree.
As long as their gut is not trauma informed.
Yes, absolutely. And my dad is very happy that I made those choices now, even though, you know, we don't talk about really the work that I do. But I think, you know, he's glad that I stuck to my guns, and he has a lot more trust in me now than he did then, and I'm appreciative of that. And I'm glad that I had the grace and compassion to see his actions and his words for what they were, and to allow him the time he needed to understand that I was not going to be dissuaded from what I felt was, you know, my calling.
Talk to me about some of these sort of maybe stories that you've experienced anecdotally about sort of moving through your life experiences, even the fact that you've got a guide that you know his name is Monty. How the hell do we get a guide named Monty?
I know, that's really interesting. Well, yeah, when I was doing automatic writing at the beginning, I asked him his name, and he said Montgomery, but I just started calling him Monty, and that's what he would write. Now, every time I start, like every morning when I have my automatic writing pages, I always say, not just to him, to all my guides, I'll say, hi, hope you're all well. I'm always polite. I'm like, I want to make sure, like, I know you're doing a lot of work, but I want to make sure all of you are doing well. And he'll say, Monty is good. We are all well. And then he already knows what I'm thinking or what I've written ahead of, like, after the how are you? I'll talk about what I'm going through. And he has been incredible. He has, because I started a collective years ago called Spirit House Collective because I just didn't feel like I was connecting to any of the spiritual communities in my area. I also wasn't seeing anyone that looked like me in these spiritual communities. And he told me to start my own, which was scary. But I did it. He would tell me things and I would do them. And I asked him once, I said, like, why me? Like, why are you talking to me? Like, why is all of this happening? And he said, because you continue to take the leap. And I did, like, I really had trust. Even if the choice didn't turn out exactly the way I had hoped it would, I knew I was learning along the way. And I think, that's what our guides really want. They want us to take that leap of faith in ourselves, not necessarily in believing in spirits, but just take that leap of faith with, knowing that you can make your life better. But yeah, he's been great. He told me to start the collective, which I did, which completely changed my life. He told me to join, the businesses, which completely exploded in the best possible way. He helped my marriage. He told me I was being, I remember, I don't know, I must have been going through a rough time, but yeah, I didn't realize how dismissive or unkind I was being to my partner. And I didn't realize that my relationship was even in danger. But when he told me that first time to be nicer, I remember a few days later talking to my partner about it. And I remember saying, like, do you think I'm not kind? And he said, sometimes. And I was like, wow. Or we'd be in the car together and he would say something and I would just want to react and I would hear Monty say, don't. And I would think, come on. And then and it really helped. There was like a 6-month period where I would have these reactionary physical responses, like I knew I was about to say something and I'd hear him say, don't do it. Don't do it. And then there were other times where, I was learning, boundaries, times where spirits are coming in that I didn't recognize as Monty or another guide. And he would say, you don't want to talk to just every spirit,
Monty would tell you don't want to talk to every spirit?
No. He's like, you don't know who, it's just like, you don't invite just anyone into your house. Like, why are you talking to, so-and-so and so-and-so? And I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know that you should differentiate between, just like people, right? They all have their different personalities. They might have a different agenda, so there was that.
It's interesting to me because I know you have a relationship with Monty, and I'm going to use the phrasing relationship with, because it's a relationship with your spirit guides.
Absolutely.
But there are other spirit guides that are coming in, and and Monty seems to be the most pronounced for you.
Yeah, he's the loudest voice, but we have, a lot of us have multiple guides that come in at certain points in our life. Like I have a guide named Charles, which is interesting. It's also my father's name.
Oh.
Very different personality than my father. He's very calming. He's very patient. And Monty, at the time when he started talking to me, I was starting a new business and I was doing all these things and I was making big leaps of faith. So I needed that like fire energy, and he is fire. But sometimes I'll say, Monty, I need to talk to Charles. Like I'm burnt out. I'm feeling like I need some more rest. I need like a different perspective. And then another guide will come in. But I always tell people, you really want to focus on getting to know the guide that can be the loudest right now, and then you can branch out from there so that you can get to know their energy and the way they communicate, and so that you also can know when another spirit has come in, which is what was happening. Like I would start to notice when another spirit came in and I would think, I don't recognize you. Like, who are you,
And you were saying moments ago that we need to be discerning about the spirits we allow in.
Yes, I don't believe that, we're on this plane of existence. We're living on this planet. We have things that we want to do, and there might be some spirits that have different agendas. We're not here to tidy things up for spirits unless we decide we want to do that.
Oh,
it's our choice, you know? We have autonomy with our own lives. Just because the spirit's like, I want you to tell Sharon where her car keys are, I have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Or sure, you know, I'll give Sharon a call and I'll ask her if she's open to me giving her some information about her car keys. You know, it's a relationship. You can go as deep as you want, or you can decide to, you know, stick with the spirits that you feel comfortable with.
So I guess, well, two things. One is, are there bad spirits?
I think some people would say yes. I think that there are some spirits that feel lost or are still moving through their own trauma. I think there are spirits that can be trickster energy. I think there are different types of spirits. I think, again, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we know a fraction of what goes on the other side, and we're trying to kind of stumble our way through it as best we can. I know I am. I do my own protections. I don't want to connect with just any spirit. I think we have to be specific about the type of spirits we want to connect to. And even then, that might not always work. You know, some spirits, some different types of spirits might slip through, you know, whether it's poltergeist activity, you know, moving things around in the house, you know, that could be someone's uncle. It could be a spirit that's just bored or doing things that are, you know, more destructive. But I think we need to have our own level of understanding of what we feel safe receiving and where we want to kind of dip our toe and see if we continue to feel safe.
So since moving to Montecito a few years ago, 2.5 years ago, this area was completely demolished by the debris flow. And people on this property lost some lives. And well before that, the Chumash were here.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's now a white person holding the lease to this land.
Yeah.
When I learned about that people had lost their lives here, I felt this like calling or this sort of obligation to create healing. And then understanding more of the heritage of the Chumash and the contribution and how we've taken so much from them and et cetera. It's really important to me to honor and to build something that's healing. And that's a lot of why I want to do the podcast around a fire in my backyard.
Yeah.
But I have felt energy here, and I'm curious if you connect to it. And what do you experience or what do you see?
You know, when I came in on the property, I think I mentioned to you earlier, you know, I just felt sadness, and I wasn't sure if the sadness was coming from you or the land. Like, I just wasn't, you know, sure. And then I definitely heard, you know, the sadness can be a cleansing ground for necessary sacrifice for new growth. And then, you know, the whole time we've been here, there have been spirits around us, but they haven't been, I felt them, you know, towards the back of the property, like kind of watching, which then made me think, oh, that's really interesting that I don't know how, but there seems to be some type of, I don't know if we would call it respect or not wanting to overstep because, you know, this is your home, you know, and spirits don't always, you know, do that. They're like, I'm just going to go wherever I want. So there is a sense of there's being spirits by the water right here, and also a sense of not wanting to overstep.
Oh, fascinating.
But also within that, you know, a sense of protecting the land itself, however they can. I know there are some animal spirits here, and I also know there are human spirits here, and I also think that there are some imprints of, you know, memory from times before that could be just an overlap of imprints of things that have happened here. But I don't get a sense of anyone wishing to come in and disturb, which I think is really beautiful. I also get the sense that if you wanted them to come closer, that they would, but I don't necessarily think you need to do that right now. So those are the impressions I got, you know, when I came in. And then I did share also that I did get an image of your mother. But again, we talked about interpretation, you know, sharing what I receive. And then, as always, it's up to you to interpret it as you feel, you know, it best correlates. And sometimes, again, I tell people like it may not resonate for days or weeks,
Yeah.
you know, because again, of time. I'm sharing what you guides or spirits will share, whether it relates to this specific moment or in time or not.
Sure.
And sometimes we just have to have patience to kind of see when that piece of the puzzle will fit.
Yeah. I think I shared with you when I first moved in and then discovered about that this was like sort of the core area that the debris flow happened, and animals and people lost some of their lives just in this area, right? There was a moment where I, one night, was back had this
and I just
inner knowing that
Yeah.
what felt like someone who had been here and lost their life had said, so, you got the property, and I had to give up my life so that dog could have a backyard. And they weren't angry
Wow.
at me, they were just
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Commenting.
And just
Yeah.
angry that they had to lose their life. Not at me,
Of course.
just
Yeah.
at mortality.
I love that you shared that, though. I love that you shared that because I think sometimes people think when people cross over that they become this bright, shining light and everything is just like rainbows and moonbeams. But, you know, they have their personality. They are who they are, which I think makes it even, can be trying at times, but it's also great. That person's like, so I had to, cool. You got this great place. I just lost my life here, but I guess this dog can keep running around and that's great.
Pooping and peeing where he wants
Yeah,
to.
pee where he wants and okay, good times, you
Right.
know? But that's a sense of like, that spirit was having a conversation and you were connecting to that energy in that moment. And I hope you kind of chuckled, you know?
Well, what came from that was, this is one of those moments where it's like, okay, am I cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs or did this actually happen? But I had a friend here who was like right there and observed. Shortly after that moment, my dog, who is a Korean rescue, went into what I would refer to as a PTSD reenactment,
Oh, wow.
right? And his eyes went to terror,
Yeah.
like watering, turned gray, tail down, shaking, and jumped up on my lap.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was from something he'd experienced in the land, because he's very sensitive,
Yeah.
or if it was he had gotten caught up in his leash. And it was shortly after that, then the spirit re-emerged and was like, thank you. I get it now. Carry on. It was like this, I
Oh,
see
wow.
the healing
Like
that
a
you
full
want
circle.
to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
therefore my life now makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
The loss of my life makes sense. Carry on.
I think it's cool that because spirits are, they're observers. They're observing the choices that we make, the whys, the frustrations, like those moments of like joy and also those moments of like deep sadness. And I believe that they're also continue to be fascinated with the choices that we continue to make, what we would view as mistakes or as victories. So I love that you're able to have that connection, and from your experience, the spirit was able to learn something on the other side as well. They were able to receive as well,
Wow, I never even thought about that.
because, it happens to spirits all the time. And I think I mentioned this at Esalen, but I've definitely heard Monty sigh a fair amount of times with me, like when I'm doing something that is just ridiculous, like,
Here we go again.
and I'm just like, you know what? I gotta learn my own way sometimes. But I do hope that sometimes I've tickled him or he's realized something about himself. I've never asked him, but
That's
I feel like
interesting.
I'm going to now as well. Like, if you learned anything from me, I would like to hope that these spirits are learning from us as well. So it's this like reciprocated relationship.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I never even thought about that before. So I have to ask, are you picking anything up? Is there anything that you want to share with me that I need to know, whether it's about who has been here before, or my mother, that obviously we've talked about that I had lost?
You know, something that's coming through is, and this is a broad stroke, but then I'll see what they say after, is that, you know, you've really made a life that you respect, but can you continue to make a life that you love on a deeper level? And can you trust that it's going to work out in the, no, can you trust that you're going to make it happen in the way that you envision? And for that, you are really going to need to incorporate a lot of time, as you know, energy, and patience, and a level of sacrifice. I don't know what that sacrifice is, but we all sacrifice in certain ways to make our dream. They're showing a house, to build the house that we wish to live in and even die in. You've gone through a lot. We see that, and you've had some deep moments of said self-reflection. But we just want to make sure that when you look back at your life, and you have discussed this in varying forms this evening, that you're not asking yourself anymore, what if I had, what if I had, what if I'd done, what if I'd done this differently, this meaning life. You already, in our opinion, have done many things differently than most. So we just want to make sure that continues on. And I can hear the sound of like when a cruise ship is taking off, there's like this deep sound from a horn. And they're showing like a bunch of people, you know, waving like, you know, they would do when a cruise ship leaves, and they're saying, you're on the ship, which is great because it reminds me of the train station, the ship. The ship is leaving the dock, but it's a big ship, and that big ship requires a lot of power to get it to that next destination in that ship. And that ship also moves slowly. So we really need you to have patience with its movement. So that's what they at least right out the gate want to share. I know your mom is here. She just keeps showing the same thing, and I wish I could hear more, but I'm going to ask. She just changed the image to a reflection in water. Did we talk about water at Esalen? She's showing like a wavy reflection in water. She's showing you looking at your reflection in the water, and it's rippling. And then she's showing herself standing next to you in the reflection. What does that mean? She says, you know this, but she said, we are each other's mirror. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? We are reflections of each other. We are. I hope you like what you see.
That's gonna make me cry.
Yeah.
In the best possible way.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, she is here all the time, you know? So I'm sure, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure she's bopping around, but she is here a lot. What I like whenever I'm connecting with spirits is to feel a sense of joy when I'm connected, because I think people sometimes think like, oh, you know, you cross over and everything's hunky-dory, and it's not.
Oh,
you know, that I gotta tell you, freaked me the fuck out. I remember connecting with my grandmother, and I was like, God damn, this woman is depressed. And I was like, and she has been dead for over 40 years. I remember like being so like sad. I was like, why is she still so sad, you know? And I realized, I was like, oh shit, like, if we don't figure stuff out, like, it doesn't mean when we die that everything vanishes, you know, and everything is like a clean slate. And again, I only know a fraction, right? So I say that because I'm connecting with your mom, and she made me smile because she was smiling. I was like, thank God, you know, because there's this she's like I'm all right, you know. I didn't like the ending, but I liked a lot of chunks of what was there, you know. And we can't ask for much more than that. Kids are the best part, right? Because we get to keep watching you and being part of it. And that's just a completely another blessing, you know? Anyway, that's what I'm
A couple
getting.
things come up for me in that. Thank you for that gift.
Of course.
A couple things come up for me in that is, since my mom's passing, in my effort to connect with her, and it just came up. It wasn't like me trying. It was just at some point, probably 3 months after she passed, which was just Mother's Day in 2025. I keep getting this visual, and I'm not clairvoyant, but I keep getting this visual of her back stroking. And I know that she would go visit Mexico when she'd come visit me in California. She'd go on to Mexico and she'd swim a lot. And she'd be so proud of herself that she could keep swimming, even when she wasn't like, her mobility had gotten worse, right?
Yeah.
So I get this visual of her backstroking and smiling and enjoying life. And she was the one that brought me to California, and that's how I got here, in the ocean. But I would just get this visual. And then one of the things that I've learned through my own process of growth is that my intergenerational trauma has been around struggle. The generations before me, not just my mom, but my mom's mom, dealt with in various forms. And one of my biggest frustrations as I grew in my own awareness, my own consciousness, and my coming into my own was that my mom lived from a place of struggle. And she literally had 6 children on her own, raising them, and life was very much a struggle. Even through the last 3 weeks of her passing, when she chose to take herself off dialysis, she gave me a gift in that she allowed me to help shower her with aid. And my mom, and she was giggling, and she allowed it, and I felt so great about that. But then there was another time in that process where she was so determined to do things by herself, even in those last couple of weeks before she knew she was going to be passing. She was struggled to be independent. And I can't even begin to imagine what this is like. I probably will imagine it more when I come upon it. I know she never wanted to be a burden to her children.
But she said, but she gave that to you. She just showed like a baton, that independence. That desire to not bow down to anybody. to not fear saying, no, not me. That's not what I'm gonna do. She gave that to you.
Yeah.
Now that gift might not have always worked out, but it's definitely helped.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what she thinks anyway. And,
Oh, no, it's
true.
No, it's true.
And yeah, she railed against the loss of that. Wouldn't you? So I'm sure that was hard, but she was not going to leave without a voice, even if that voice couldn't be heard. You know? I mean, I think about that with my mother now. I told you earlier, she's 86 and she was in the hospital for several months and she's relearning to walk and all of these things. And she is just livid that she does not have the independence that she used to have. And one of my guides just said, daughters understanding their mothers is one of the most beautiful experiences, even though it's hard, you know, like, and it's true, like you and I are talking about understanding our mothers in a new and different way that we probably couldn't earlier on. And like one of my guides said, and what does that mean? That means that we're closer than ever. It means even after they're gone, we continue to get closer despite the physical divide. That's also precious.
Wow.
So they said, the relationship does indeed continue,
Wow.
you know? Through grief, through pain, through life, until it starts all over again, you know?
Do they guide us? Because you've talked about spirit guides, which are separate.
I mean, that's what I believe. I mean, you know, I believe that there are spirits that can be guides, you know, like whether it's a mother or an ex-boyfriend or whoever that come for a time and want to be guides. But spirit guides, I believe, they're chosen before incarnated. They know the things that that our soul wants to connect with or learn, and they do their best to lead us in that direction. And, you know, and what I love most about that is that we, you know, people often say, and I get it, like we come into this world alone and we die alone. But I believe we come into this world with so many voices and we leave it with so many voices with us, you know? Even when we think we're alone, we're not. And that's one of the greatest gifts that I feel I've received. You know, those moments where I feel like I don't want to go on or things are just completely fucked up, I realize, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not. I'm literally not alone. There are spirits around me right now that even when I couldn't hear them, were still there watching, and they were there with me, and they were rooting for me and cheering me on, and letting me know that every day we're here is a choice. You know, we choose to do this, and if we're choosing to do this, then, you know, what's the next choice? What are the choices we're gonna make with this time while we're here? Because we don't have to do anything at all, you know?
So we can turn toward them and ask for their help.
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
Just ask for their help. You can say it out loud, you can say it internally, you know? And not have expectations in the way it's gonna be received. You know, you could say, I need help just getting through the day. And you go outside and, you know, someone from across the street waves at you. And you're like, oh, that was nice. Someone sees me, you know? It doesn't always need to be a thunderbolt. It can just be an acknowledgement, and it can grow from there. Again, you're discovering your own language with them and not trying to compare it to the way someone else receives, but really tuning into the way you receive. Yeah.
How do you differentiate that for people who are skeptical from, are these voices that you're hearing in your head? Like, how do you differentiate that from sort of the naysayers that can't quite get on board, that may not even believe in a higher power?
Yeah, honestly, that's totally fine. I don't really, you know, care about that. Like for me, it's like, if you don't believe, that's fine. I think the question is, are you allowing yourself to connect so that you even know what you're feeling or experiencing? And is there a reason that you are turning away from it? If you are really a skeptic, but, you know, as Mulder and X-Files would say, but you want, you know, I want to believe, then you really gotta, you know, commit to the various practices of really learning how you can receive beyond the subconscious. And that can take a lot of work. You have to make that choice. But I think, you know, when we talk about mediumship, psychic connection, intuition, spirituality, we're just talking about having faith. And at the end of the day, you're talking about having faith in yourself. The more faith you have in yourself, the more belief you have in yourself, the more that can ripple out into these other regions, because you're more open in general and trust what you feel and know and sense to be true. And I think that, you know, a lot of people have built a lot of walls around that because they're terrified of, if they stop to listen, of what they would hear, which means they're terrified to live, which means they're not actually connecting to the human experience. And that is tragic.
And including maybe their highest potential.
oh yeah, they're completely, or they're waiting for someone. Sometimes I'll have, meet people on these retreats, and we talked about this earlier, that just want an answer, and there was someone on the retreat that emailed me, and they just want this specific answer. And I keep rereading this email because I haven't written back, and because all I'm hearing is, why are you asking me this question instead of looking to discover it for yourself?
It's externalizing the power to someone. I call this outsourcing.
Yeah.
I call it, you're outsourcing your power.
Yeah. And I get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
of
but,
course.
Where's the fun in that?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want to have the revelation for yourself? Don't you want to stumble upon it and have that aha moment?
So I agree with you on that. And a lot of people, what we would call, there's internal locus of control and external locus of control. And if there's not a lot of faith in self,
Yeah.
I want to give that power over to somebody else.
Yeah.
You could extend that into like voting for president, right? And
yes. Yeah.
And but when you have a strong internal locus of control, you can turn towards yourself and say, I'm going to tune out the noise of others and trust in self. But even for those of us who have a strong one, it requires a lot, especially when you're being told by the people that you love, that love you, that have authority. You have to really fight a lot of noise.
You do. And that it's like a muscle. I feel like you just have to build up that strength over time until the muscle feels strong enough to carry you through there. And I think that's why we're having this conversation now, right? Part of it is the hope that, if one person listens to this conversation and decides, I do believe in myself, I do trust what I already know. It doesn't have to be about spirit guides or whatever. I'm going to trust that I know what's best for me versus anyone else. Then this podcast is a success.
I agree with
Yeah.
you 100%. How do you explain how this is different, or is it different from manifesting?
I think a lot of times people utilize manifesting, and I completely understand, for something physical and tangible. Like, I want to manifest a huge house. I want to manifest my soulmate. I want to manifest that trip to Peru. And I think the work of self is about asking yourself questions that go beyond the material, that ask yourself, why do you want the house? Why do you want the soulmate? Why do you want that trip to Peru? When I started this journey, and when I often talk to guides, they're often asking people, how do you feel now and how do you want to feel? You want the house because there's a level of safety that it provides. You want the trip because there's an adventureness of spirit that you want to enact. You want the soulmate because you want connection. How can we start activating those feelings and desires within the life you currently have? Because when you do that, other things will be called in, but it's not attached to something that's material. It's attached to something that is really connected to the soul and the heart. Those things will come. So that's at least what I believe the difference is.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then how do you reconcile this work, spirit guides, and mediumship and channeling that within ourselves, separate from or adjacent to or interwoven with the psychedelic movement?
I think that psychedelics can be an incredibly powerful door opener for connection to the other side and connection to heart truth, period, point blank. I also believe, if not done the right way, it can cause, a psychotic break.
Yep.
It can cause extreme depression. It can cause a loss of self.
Increased narcissism
Oh.
if someone is narcissistic.
Oh, it
The
can
neural pathways that get strengthened.
it can create a beautiful symphony or, a tornado.
Choose your facilitator wisely, people.
Absolutely. I have had clients that have had very unfortunate experiences with it.
I have a friend who got raped from a shaman during it.
Unfortunately,
and had a
yeah.
baby.
Oh my God, it makes me so angry.
Yeah.
It makes me so angry because we're talking about medicine being utilized inappropriately without intention or with evil intent. So I think when we're thinking about psychedelics in general, we have to be able to have resources and support that feel in alignment. If you have a moment of feeling as though you're unsure, just trust that, and doing as much research as possible with the people that are holding that container for you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it is a door and it can be the most beautiful, magical, illuminating, life-changing door for you.
Agreed.
But just like with anything, we have to be able to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe, it's not worth the risk.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Is it possible, is it true that spirits, souls interact with humans through multiple lives, and how do they coexist with humans?
That's such a crazy question. First of all, let me answer what I believe. I do believe that people have had past lives. I do believe that we have met, each certain souls over and over again. Just like when you're pulling up that same tarot card. Yeah, I do. I think that we come back together in different ways, whether it's as a parent or a friend or, I do believe that. But I don't know how it works, because when I talk to spirits, there's this sense of everything happening all at once. So I'm like, how does it work? Well, one of my guys just said, well, you're a baby right now in this life. You're also working in a field in another. But then it brings me back to, so is it the same soul? They just said yes, but I don't know. I said, I don't know how it works. They said, why do you need to know how it works? Why are you supposed to know how it works? If we explained it, would it even make sense? Probably not. Probably not. What we can share is that you are all living multiple existences at once. And most of those existences are not easy. We don't know why, because I was like, why? We don't know why. And I said, does that mean that I'm living a past life at the same moment as a current life in the future? Yes. Yes, it does. It does, remember. Remember, time, at least as we can share it, is a circle. Wow. It's continuous. Sphere of time, if you will. You want an easy explanation. You always want an easy explanation. We get it like a child with a question. You want an answer that you can understand. You rail against the unknowable sometimes. But sometimes acceptance is the only request we can share. I mean, they just went way out into the future too. I mean, the point here is, what we would like to share is if we share that everything is happening all at once, if you are all living multiple lives at once, yes. And yes, we share that a lot of those lives will be hard. We can also connect to the feeling that within these lives happening in this moment, so to speak, you're also experiencing love, joy, laughter. ecstasy, seduction, sensuality, epiphanies. And if we can know that, or at least believe in it just a little bit, we can touch it, we can breathe it in, and we can lift our spirits when in need. At least we hope. You know?
A follow-up question. For someone who might be watching and say, you mean there might be more struggle after this life?
Yes, absolutely. What is it we're looking for here? Absolution idea. The idea that eventually we will live in a world that is completely a utopian society. That is not the way mankind works. You would have to decide. You'd have to decide to not come back here to this plane. And even then, you would still have another semblance of existence that could not be simply amenable, you know. So I'm asking: are there existences where everything is peace? Yes, more so than what we as humans would experience. But what's interesting is when I asked that, they showed me an image of a tree, you know, or which has a spirit, has an energy.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, or this flame.
Sure.
So not in a body. They said there are those that experience peace in the body, but it's a very disconnected peace, which means, like, it made me feel like a sociopath.
Wow.
You know? They're different. I mean, again, this is such a massive question.
Sure.
I'm just sharing like bits and pieces that I'm getting, and also completely understanding that I don't have the intelligence to really understand probably a single layer of what goes on with souls and spirits interchangeably within this concept of a sphere of time as a sphere.
I also believe, even as humans are limited, even the most genius of those who believe the impossible is possible, like maybe Elon Musk's of the world, whatever someone thinks of him, like he has achieved a lot and thinks beyond the frameworks of what most of us consider are self-limiting beliefs.
Right. Yeah.
Like, as a human, even just watching and listening to you just now process that, it's hard for even you to, in some ways, fully embrace what your spirits are showing you because of the frameworks we know, or at least as I am observing it, are well beyond our own experiences, and thereby makes it just difficult to even really fully understand or connect to.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I remember like my 4th grade teacher talking to us about aliens and saying, you know, the human mind cannot even conceive of an alien that does not even have some resemblance to us. Eyes, like nose, like why is that what an alien looks like? It's because of our perception of what we believe, like limbs, like we can't comprehend. So one of my guides said, but what mankind does have is imagination. And we love that. The ability to imagine and create the most beautiful and the most monstrous simultaneously.
Wow. You've got a lot of energy, spirits talking to you just by your ability to connect. And I only know by having been at Esalen with you and observing that you go through a ritual of like, okay, if I have this, or if I'm on the verge of having this, or if what happened? I don't know that I want to have this because how do I turn it off? And how do I live if I can't turn it off? So can you help people to, in some ways, find comfort if they choose to kind of connect more to this part of themselves and call it in? How do they live with it in a way? Because I experience you as very grounded. Even in the flurry coming here today and you arrived and I still had things I needed to do, I was like, girl is grounded.
I received that. I received that. I think it's also, I think everyone, and you heard me talk about this during the retreat, we have to have our own systems of protection and grounding and connection. The times that we are open to receiving and the times that we're not, like being very kind of strict with your rules of engagement, letting spirits know that you don't want to receive all the time. You're here on this plane for a reason, During meditation, I'm receiving. If I'm out at a party, I'm not. Like being very clear about that. And it can be difficult because you might think, oh, I just want to receive whenever, they're available. They're going to be available when you want.
Wow. Yeah.
So just knowing that and trusting that and allowing yourself to be present in the moment, of life versus constantly reaching to the other side when you can create a practice around that. And you want your protections. You don't want to be hearing and feeling stuff all the time that is outside of the experience that you're currently engaged in. So what are your protections? How are you grounding yourself? What places in your home are you open to receiving and what are you not? Like really taking the time to write out and to think about what your intention with the connecting is, what you're hoping to receive, and what the framework is around it. That is the best advice that I can give.
Wow. I'm like heartfelt. I'm appreciative of the intellectual curiosity equally. So thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me to both understand this more, to connect to my spirits, to my mother in the ways that I know how at this moment, but just for being real and human about it at the same time as being like, yeah, girl, it's here, it's real,
Yeah.
I mean, I really appreciate that part of you the most.
Well, thank you for having me here and for allowing me to kind of also in real time unravel what I'm hearing and what I'm experiencing. And also what I love about conversations like this is that I leave having learned so much as well. And I know I'm going to on my drive back to LA, I'm going to be thinking about so many things we discussed and also probably talking to them in the car. Like, what did you think about that? Like, what we should talk about that more, Monty. Like, that was so cool and interesting because we don't always have a place where we can explore these experiences and these feelings and this life in a way that, again, feels safe. So it's been an honor and I can't wait to connect with the other guests that you have and for this whole experience to blossom even more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch and listen. It helps me a lot if you subscribe to our channel here and look out for future episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.